Welcome to Golden Mastermind Seminars Radio with your host, Jeffery Combs.
Good afternoon, Jeffery Combs. Welcome to Facebook Live. This is year number 6 since I moved my More Heart Than Talent Mindset call to, this was the month I actually moved it, to the Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Facebook Live. So welcome. Good to have you here on Facebook Live. I was looking through my memories today and found some just great content that I wrote back in 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I've been content writing, filming videos, hosting events on Facebook for the last 16 years. So good to be here with you. Breathe, release, and let go. Topic for today's Facebook Live are the 3 levels of self. The lowest level of self is the self that is in apathy and grief. That is the very bottom of the scale of consciousness. That is in that level of anxiety, fear, and doubt. That is grief, apathy. That is shame and guilt, and then abandonment and rejection. Paige says hello to everyone. Raymond is here, Matt Smith, and I saw John, who is here also. So good to see all of you this afternoon. It's going to be a very packed call. I know one team is going to be joining. One of my clients is now starting to bring their sales team to the Tuesday calls. So let's look at the 3 levels of self. There's the absolute bottom of lower self, and then in the middle of consciousness is doubt. And then in above courage begins the transcending of consciousness to the higher self. Where most of the population lives is in between the bottom and the higher level of consciousness, doubt. And that's where most of the world operates. It's an in and out state of consciousness. You're in and out. It's the duality of right, wrong, good, bad, black, white. John McFadden has joined us, and so has Cole. And that's where most of the world will live. And this is where they will have levels of success, then levels of failure. It's the duality of life. It's the most common consciousness. The rock bottom of self is despondency, it's grief, it's self-rejection, self-hatred, it's criticism, and it's narcissism. That's the very, very bottom of self. And then the higher self is the self that lives in peace, produces results, lives in a level of emotional freedom that most of society doesn't. And that is the law of the few. A few people live that way. Most of the world lives in doubt. That is the highest level of the lower self. And then the very bottom of the lower self, once again, is the lowest self that is in rock bottom. And they continue to escalate, and they go up and down in that rock bottom situation. Then doubt has a higher level of up and down. And then there are people who can actually make 100,000 or 200,000 in doubt, and you can have jobs in doubt. And what most people doubt is that they are good enough. And as you begin to have a better understanding of the map of the scale of consciousness, and then what does it mean to transcend the scale of consciousness? So imagine it's a pyramid like this. And so at the very bottom of it, at the bottom of that pyramid, it's down very low down here, and then it goes up like this. And so in the scale of consciousness, what happens is you become more and more aware. As you step out of this doesn't make sense. Does that make sense? And when you're communicating from making sense, that's your left brain. When you're in higher consciousness, you're in both of your brains, and you're in intuition, you're in trust, you're in understanding, you're in awareness, and you're not doubting yourself. You don't doubt your partner, you don't doubt your wife, you don't doubt God, you don't doubt the universe. You're not in doubt, you're in trust. And you're trusting yourself, and you trust yourself to make decisions, and you don't doubt. And so in that level of consciousness, you're able to sell, you're able to write, you're able to create, you're able to adapt, you're able to adjust, you're able to be and stay sober. Because in that level of higher consciousness, the pleasure isn't worth the pain. And you're not doubting whether you can be sober or not. You're not doubting whether your partner is a good partner. You're not doubting your wife or your husband, because you know the answer. And when you know the answer, you know. And when you know, you don't have to explain yourself. When you're in the explanation stage, you don't understand stage, it doesn't make sense stage, you can't figure out this government, You're very concerned about the president. You're worried about the future. You're worried about the economy. You're afraid the economy is going to collapse. Well, then you're in doubt, and that's where most people live, and that's what is called the divide. And the agenda wants to put you in a place where you're in doubt. It's called trauma-based mind control. And in that trauma-based mind control of doubt, you'll make poor decisions, you'll eat poorly, you'll eat GMOs, trans fat, you'll stand in line for the new weight loss shots, and you'll do many of these situations that people are doing over and over, and you won't live holistically or naturopathically. You'll continue to tiptoe quietly through life and do what you've been taught most of your life in the black, right, right, wrong, good, bad duality world. And when you volunteer to step out of that matrix, you're going to step into higher levels of freedom. The truth does not set you free. It gives you the opportunity to understand the playing field. But if you continue to live in this matrix and you continue to suck on that blue pill and you continue to pray that someone's going to come rescue you, and you're putting your faith in the government and men in the upper echelons of the three-letter agencies, you know who those are. When you continue to trust and count on those people, and then what happens is your pineal gland shuts down. And so when you're in doubt, you're not able to access God as frequently as you can. You will be able to access it in doubt at certain times, but you won't have full access to the quantum field. You don't have you're not in the map of consciousness. You're shut down in doubt, and you're living in a much smaller world. And so your view, your clarity, your perception, your ability to discern and decide is affected up here in your prefrontal cortex. Back here is your hippocampus, that's your short and long-term memory. And then right back here is your amygdala, the little pea-sized gland that searches for a familiar feeling, and that's where the reticular activating system is. And when you're in that doubt, you're going to continue to attract your reality, people and situations to fulfill your feelings. And people ask me, well, how do I change? The answer is one word: by committing. You commit to change one day at a time. It's the only day you have. And you do your best to stop processing, thinking, analyzing, and you stop using words kinda, I guess, yeah, but, probably. Yeah, but is like the ultimate contradiction that most of the planet lives in. Yeah, but. And once you begin to understand that word is law, and you understand that your communication style and your communication is not conducive to peace, prosperity, higher consciousness, then you can begin to adapt and adjust on it. I started the depth of this process in 1991 with a book called The Game of Life and How to Play It. It was given to me by a teammate, and what was the breakthrough factor for me was a chapter that said word is law. And as I began to have a better understanding of what word is law mean, I began to understand the power of the spoken word and the power of my word. And I began to start to reverse this process of my own negativity, my own skepticism, my own doubt, my own lack, my scarcity consciousness. And over the next 20 plus years, I've been in this process of a deeper level of recovery. It's actually 35 years of sobriety, about to be 36. 26 years of owning Golden Mastermind Seminars Incorporated, teaching consciousness, sales and marketing skills, entrepreneurship, and specifically the skill of letting go, the separation between the feelings and the events that shape them. And as you begin to understand not only the content, but the context. The context is the application. It's taking content, then putting it into action. It's laying down the tracks. It's putting the spikes in the track and producing results in a relaxed body. It's living in the solution. It's having a better understanding of what is going on in the outer world while being able to practice peace in your inner world. There's not a lot you can do in the outer world other than produce results, pray to your God, do your best to do your best in this most challenging times in world history, be an ambassador of peace, an ambassador of change, practice higher levels of consciousness, do your best to have no more cheat days, and then be a steward to your fellow man. Be able to lead by example, be a leader grower, be a mentor to mentees, and do your best to stay out of anxiety, fear, and especially doubt. Doubt is the safe place that most of the world parks. They park in doubt, and then they tiptoe quietly through life, to arrive at their grave safely, and then they live the greatest pain, the pain of regret. And that's what anxiety is. Anxiety is worry about a future that hasn't happened and regret about a past that continues to haunt you. And when you're able to be in peace and let go, and you're able to practice forgiveness, you're able to practice gratitude, the energy that you transmit begins to change. You're no longer the mind-body connection to the trauma bonds, the panic patterns, and the events that shape your feelings. If you continue to hold on to the greatest lie is, I am not good enough. When you continue to hold on to that story, because that's all it is, because you are good enough in God's eye, you are perfect, provided that you are able to accept that. But if you don't accept that, then you'll find your flaws and everyone else's flaws. Now, in rigorous honesty and taking a moral inventory of yourself, which is step 4 in any 12-step program, taking a moral inventory of yourself, it's done in honesty. So you're not criticizing yourself, you're being honest with yourself about your own character defects. And in that honesty, you're not in denial, which that truth right there brings you into a level of energy called courage. Courage is the breakthrough factor when it comes to transcending consciousness, because at the quality of courage, now courage is not an emotion, courage is a quality that is accessible to all. It's accessible through prayer, it's through surrender, and most importantly, it's at the ability to let go, the separation between the feelings and the events that shape them. And it's important that you monitor your word choices, because if you continue to say, yeah, but, whatever you just said in that sentence before doesn't count anymore, because you just brought yourself back to doubt. Doubt is the lower self. It's also called the ego. In my world of consciousness, the ego is not arrogance or eccentricity. The ego is the lower self that lives in doubt, that lives in procrastination. In 2010, I wrote a minor best-selling book called From Procrastination to Production. One of my clients told me that he believed that book would be a bestseller. He then suggested an agent to me, who I then called, and that I hired that agent. Then he took that book and sold it to a company called Career Press. It was turned down by over 50 companies, all the major publishers, Wiley & Sons, Simon & Schuster, Hay House, all of the major publishers turned it down. However, Career Press did publish that book, and surprisingly, it was bestseller in 4 different languages and ended up in every Barnes & Noble in America for over 15 years. I mean, it's still in that section. But as bizarrely as it sounds, it's in the management section. But in that book, I break down that procrastination is avoidance, and the Latin word for procrastination is procrastinare, or to avoid. And that's what doubt is. You're doubting you're being your best self, and you hide out in doubt to avoid failing and or avoid succeeding, whichever one you choose every other day that you're living in this overwhelmed state of conscious unconsciousness, tiptoeing quietly through life. And if you own a business and you're not active in that business, if you're not in action, then you're procrastinating. And if you're not inspired in that business, then you're avoiding it. The name of the book, Erica, is The Procrastination Cure. It's on my website. And for any of you that buy books from me, please do not buy them online. I don't get credit for them. I was not aware of how this operates, but Amazon can print my books on demand and sell them. They will give me a little tiny residual, but if you buy from me directly, the money goes to me. You can go to goldenmastermind.com, especially The Breakthrough Factor. The Breakthrough Factor is on Audible and is a downloadable book, and because it's a download, Amazon can print on demand. So any of those that you want to be authors, feel free to come to me. I once owned my own publishing company where we published over 32 books. I've written 5 books myself, self-published all 5 books, and I have a system and a routine that I can teach you how to be a first-time author. Now, you won't be a bestseller. It just doesn't happen like that unless you get an agent or you're willing to invest a minimum of $250,000 on up. You can be a bestseller online in some of the categories, but once again, it's a structured game plan you're going to require, and you have to understand the inner game of publishing, which I do. As I said, I've published 5 of my own books and then multiple books for others, and also co-authored 4 other books, so there's a total of 9 books with my content in it. And I never considered myself a good writer, a great writer. I'm self-taught. I do have a degree in journalism, but that's not really what I used it for. I was a drug addict, alcoholic, drug dealer from 18 years old to 31. I never used my college degree. Throughout my 20s, I waited tables and did menial sales jobs where I just barely got by until rock bottom became an eventuality. It was vodka that did me in. And I came to a place where the pleasure wasn't worth the pain. And that was the bottom of lower self. So if you ever hit rock bottom and you were fortunate enough to make that day where you say the pleasure isn't worth the pain, if you've come from that place, like me and a couple other men on this call that I'm aware of, if you've come from that place, I commend you, because that's the access of courage. That was your higher self. That actually was one of your highest selves, because you made the decision that saved your life. Or if any of you have ever been in that situation where you had those suicidal thoughts, you had those thoughts that I can't make it, or you've ever had those doubts, and you were able to talk yourself off that rail, and then you stepped into your higher power, which is courage, and trusted in your God and asked for forgiveness, well, that would be your highest self. And if you can be and stay in that space more frequently, you're going to have better results in life. You're going to attract higher consciousness people to your reality, because they're going to start to believe what you believe. But if you doubt what you believe, even if you overcame that rock bottom state, but you still doubt yourself, it's still going to affect who and what you're going to attract. One of the major accomplishments that you will accomplish is to be your best self one day at a time, back to back, over a period of days, weeks, months, and years, so that you are no longer the mind-body connection to the events that shape the feelings. And even though the economy is what the economy is today, there's plenty of opportunities for opportunists. Real estate, insurance, network marketing, direct sales, being an influencer, being an affluencer, being a coach, being a speaker, a real estate investor, being an inventor, being an investor. There's multitudes of ways that you can live a good life. And it's going to require a lot of money in today's economy. I mean, 6 figures is nothing. 7 figures is what it is. I'm very skilled at taxes and money skills. I teach them in my one-on-one coaching. I mean, I live in a state where I'm in a 47% tax bracket. I mean, it just is what it is. You accept it. If you're going to achieve 7 figures, to the Fed, you're going to owe 38%, give or take. And the whole theory and the myth that there's loopholes for the rich and famous, well, I haven't seen it. I'm very skilled at tax law. I've also had one of those 3-letter agencies at my door one time. That was a 5-year odyssey that ended up, it was a very unique time of my life. So I'm very skilled on taxes, accounting, bookkeeping, money, spiritual money, how to attract to your reality people and situations that will assist you to be in prosperity, reciprocity. So if that's what you're seeking, then you're listening to content that potentially could empower you. You can go to my website. I have a host of products and services that I've been selling since 1998. I produced my first audio cassette, Power Prospecting and Power Sorting for Professionals, in 1998. That was a 2-cassette audio program, followed by a 4-cassette audio program called Mindset Consciousness. So I've been laying down the tracks in the studio for a long time and writing content from the comfort of my desk for a long time, and coaching for 26 years, 150,000 hours, one-on-one. If you're on today's Facebook Live and you've not accessed a free 20-minute coaching session, feel free to reach out to me via Facebook Messenger, or you can go to my website and you can request a 20-minute call from my website. There's a form you can fill out, or you can just send me your phone number and I'll get back to you immediately. The topic for today's Facebook Live is the 3 levels of self. And recapping this, the lowest level of self is rock bottom. And those emotions are apathy, grief, guilt, and shame. And then right above that is rejection and abandonment. And if you're an adult child of alcoholics, adult child of narcissists, you've been through your own trauma, physical, sexual, emotional abuse, highly criticized by people in your circle of influence growing up, there's a high probability that you'll have some level of brain fog. It is absolutely, you're in your power through the power of God, surrender and letting go, that you can actually remedy some of these. And for those of you who are holistic, naturopathic, I commend you, because many of you are healing yourself through different products, through different foods, through detoxing, through fasting, through a series of other praying and multiple components that are available to you. I commend you for beginning to live a holistic, naturopathic life outside of the toxic agenda. And the more that you're able to step out of that into your power, it opens this right here, your pineal gland. That's your ocular gland that gives you access to the quantum field. And for me, I call that God. So it gives me access to that. Just Sunday, my wife and I were standing in the grass in my front yard. We were out there in prayer, seeking the providence, barefoot, grounding ourselves in the grass. So Raymond says he's having brain fog. Well, if you'd like to speak to me, Raymond, feel free to send me a Facebook message. I'd be honored to speak to you. Brain fog is a very common commonality. It's also left over once you, for those of us who've ever stepped into sobriety and then the other side of sobriety, sometimes you'll have years of brain fog from the trauma, the drama, the substances, the abuse that we endured. And brain fog can be released and relieved, but it's not going to come through standard medication. It's going to come through understanding mind-body connections, the skill of letting go, and then a series of other detoxes, cleanses, and a holistic approach to being able to release and let go the drama, because the body keeps score. So the body holds on to repress pain, and that's in one of the major components of brain fog. And as I said, there are ways, and there are systematic and holistic ways that you can release that so you can be your best self. So I never knew that's what I suffered from deeply and still do not know why. So Erica, good to see you this afternoon. Feel free to post comments here. Thank you, Paige, for your comment. I have almost 15 years ago, and space you're talking about is what I want more frequently. Thank you very much, those of you who are posting. And there's some people on today's Facebook Live that have a lot of sobriety, a lot of recovery. They've been through a lot. I commend all of you who have had the courage to step into your higher self. I mean, courage is not an emotion, it's a quality. And when you start to access that quality of courage, the road to your providence becomes less burdensome. You begin to let go of the anxiety, fear, and doubt that you hold on to. So if you've been in pain or brain fog, I feel you. I was an addict for 14 years. I was consuming a gallon of vodka a day at the end of my career. My drugs of choice were any barbiturate or methamphetamine, heroin was as much my drug of choice as cocaine, but my romance was with vodka and scotch. That was my mistress of choice for 14 years. So for those of you who are seeking the providence and you're seeking the peace, thank you for being here on today's Facebook Live. Jeffery Combs, President and Founder, Golden Mastermind Seminars Incorporated. I had someone ask me yesterday, how much longer have you been doing this? You've been doing this a long time. Well, I'm 67. I'll be 68 soon. I was friends with the great Jim Rohn. I had the privilege of sharing the stage with great Jim Rohn. The last public speech he ever did in 2008 at one of my events in Dallas, Texas, he was 83. I figure I got another 15 years at least, so I'll be here a long time. Breathe, release, and let go. Good afternoon. And I'm going to hit the record button if you'd like to hear this on playback. Have a good afternoon.